It's day 3, definitely for the week. It's Wednesday. Welcome to Breakfast Central here on News Central. It's day 3 as well for the Nigeria Economic Summit. And don't forget that we have consistently brought you updates right there in Abuja. That's because we're having a simultaneous kind of broadcast where Breakfast Central is here in Lagos as well as there in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. I'm Joe Hansen, welcoming you to another day where we'll be talking about some of the biggest stories, not just the biggest stories, but stories that concerns you. We'll also be looking forward to have a very seasoned analyst and guest who would join us to analyze these big stories. As usual, I am not doing this alone. I've got the duo who are there in Abuja, Olive and Benga Aborowa. Good morning, guys, and hope you're doing great. Hope you had a great night rest, especially after yesterday's cumbersome interviews and conversations that you held down.
Well, good morning, Joe. Good morning, Lagos. We are still live here at the heart of the nation's power seat. We're in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, bringing you day 3 of NES, the Nigerian Economic Summit, dubbed NES 31. And yesterday was quite an intense day, Joe. It was interviews upon interviews back to back. So we had some really high profile interviews we're excited to share. Also yesterday we kicked off with, right after Breakfast Central, the CEO breakfast meeting where we looked at setting a national productivity agenda for Nigeria and what that would look like. And I particularly liked that session because it gave everybody an opportunity to be a part of the conversation. So every table had a table leader, everyone had to contribute and pitch in, and there were presentations at the end, so it felt like everyone in the hall was a part of all the conversations that we had in smaller pockets. So that was really exciting. And then we heard from the government. We had the Minister for Budget and Economic Planning, Senator Matiku Bagudu, join us, and he just shared the government perspective, understanding where we are. So that was the key analysis. Where are we as a nation when we talk about productivity? What really is a productivity? What is this productivity marker? Where are we and where are we looking to get to? So that was like the highlight of yesterday's conversation for me. Of course, there were other sessions, but yeah, that's what day 2 looked like for us here.
I mean, Joe, it's been a power-packed conference. The last 3 days have been nothing but very exciting, but a lot of work too. I know Hilda has been breaking world records, but if you combine the number of interviews Olive and I have done the last 48 hours,
if you had known, you would have added a
record somewhere to be broken. But I mean, away from that light note, we've been talking to policymakers and the administrator. I had the pleasure of speaking with the Minister of Budget and National Planning just to have a sense of where the government is going with its directions, with its policy directions, how they feel and how these things translate from their own end to, oftentimes we hear what the people are saying. We hardly get to be intimate one-on-one with government officials and those in the corridors of power, and this summit has given us the opportunity to do it. I also had the pleasure of speaking with special advisors to Mr. President on economic affairs and also trade and investment. So if you're watching News Central, we'll advise you to stay tuned. We'll be bringing you all those interviews in the course of the day and our programming. So, Joe, it's good to finally wind down and come back to base.
I mean, yes. Joe has not been able to really focus. It's been such a hard time for him.
He's
missed us so much. It's been a long day without you, our friend, and we'll tell you all about it when we see you again.
Lonely at the top.
Look,
lonely.
Please. Please. I don't. Hello. If I had my way, I would love the both of you to remain there in Abuja. Just stay there if I had my way. Both of you just remain there, because that statement you just made, na lie, to be honest. But let's go into.
Don't do it.
Let's go to one of the biggest stories, guys. The biggest stories that happened yesterday, and let's use it to kickstart the wake-up conversation. The minister, embattled Minister Uche Nnaji, eventually resigned yesterday after the certificate of forgery allegations. I think it could no longer hold. The presidency made a statement, of course, through the special advisor to the president, Mr. Bayo Onanuga. I seem to have a little issue with this statement that he did put out, but let's take a look at it and then let's start off the wake-up conversation. There you have it on the screen. It says, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has accepted the resignation of Uche Nnaji, the Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology, following some, take note, some allegations against him. Now, he went on to say, President Tinubu appointed Nnaji in August 2023. He resigned today in a letter thanking the president for allowing him to serve Nigeria. Now, look at this line. Nnaji said he has been a target of blackmail by political opponents. President Tinubu thanked him for his service and wished him well in future endeavors. Where I have a challenge with this is that line where it said Nnaji said he has been a target of blackmail by political opponents. So I'm using this medium to ask Mr. Bayo Onanuga, he said, did the presidency also do its fact check? Anyway, this is his statement, his official statement, press release, statement by Chief Uche Nnaji, former honorable, he said, he added former there. So he's accepted his resignation by himself, for himself, immediately. Former Honorable Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology for immediate release. After deep reflection and consultations with family, associates and well-meaning Nigerians, I have today tendered my resignation as the Honorable Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. This decision did not come lightly. Over the past week, an orchestrated, sustained campaign of falsehood, politically motivated and malicious attacks have been waged against my person, integrity and office across print, electronic and social media platforms. These unfounded allegations and media distortions have not only caused personal distress, but have also begun to distract from the vital work of the ministry and renewed hope agenda of Mr. President. As someone who has spent more than 5 decades building a reputation anchored on hard work, honor, and service to humanity, I cannot in good conscience allow these distractions to cast a shadow over the noble objectives of this administration. My decision to step aside is therefore a personal choice, not an admission of guilt, but rather a principled decision to respect the sanctity of due process and to preserve the integrity of the judicial proceedings currently before the court. In the end, justice will prevail, and history will vindicate the just. Thank you. I mean, I added that thank you wasn't there, but he went on to say, I remain deeply grateful to His Excellency, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, for the confidence he reposed in me and for the privilege to serve in his cabinet. His vision for a renewed, innovative, and technologically driven Nigeria is one I continue to hold dear, and I pledge my unflinching support to his administration and his transformative goals. Chief Uche Nnaji, former Honorable Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology, Federal Republic of Nigeria. End of the letter. Well, there you have it. That's what he said, and he's bowed out. And then the presidency accepted it and also highlighted the reasons, well, not really the reasons from the presidency's angle, but of course, the reasons that he gave. And it's right. So there are mixed reactions here. Nigerians are saying, wow, wow. So a minister can actually resign? Impossible. Well, we're going to see those reactions later on, but I'm going to throw it back at you guys. What do you make of this resignation? Especially, I know you were busy up until midnight to the wee hours because of the NES, but can you share what you thought when you eventually heard the story and saw it as a breaking news that the ministers finally said, my hands are up, I give up, white flag, I hereby resign?
Maybe the positive side and the not so positive side to this story. I have in my hand a list of politicians who have allegations of forgery, those who have had to resign because of forgery, the likes of Salisu Buhari, who was, this was from 1999 to 2000, who claimed to have a bachelor's degree from the University of Toronto, whereas what he obtained was a diploma. So there's a number of them. I can start to go through the list. But on the one hand, maybe the upside or the positive side to this, before we go into critiquing, is the fact that he's realized that he's in the eye of the storm and he did the honorable thing, which is to step aside. And a lot more politicians need to learn from that. When you have certain things, like you find that you're in the eye of the storm in this manner, step aside for a bit. Let them conclude investigations, confirm you clean, then you can come back. That's one. If we get to the meat of this, the presidency putting out a statement saying that they accept his resignation, it did rub me off the wrong way when I saw that, because it's not enough for you to say you accept. What is being realized here or exposed here is fraud. Fraud is a crime. So if you find that, you should condemn. Typically, the presidency always condemns. I don't know if they condemned this one and say, no, the presidency, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu condemns. I'm not seeing any condemnation there. If you can go as far as, it's one thing for you to go through the school and say, okay, you didn't put in your best foot forward, but at least you graduated and you got a certificate. It's another thing for you to go to school in 1981, because the university keeps saying that, yes, he was admitted in 1981, but that there was no record of him graduating by 1985. So where did these certificates come from? You on your own decided, you masterminded forgery of certificate, and that's a crime punishable under Nigeria's law. So let's not take it with light gloves, kid gloves. And these are the people who are supposed to be the finest of Nigerians, setting the standard and representing what we have today in terms of quality of character and integrity. And if this is what we have to deal with, then it's a really sorry story.
I mean, I have a totally different take. Olive believes that, we should applaud the fact that he resigned. Look, if you resign and you're still denying the fact and your resignation letter is still defiant, you don't deserve any applause or plaudits.
I'm just trying to say a silver lining.
No, I mean, it was soft. It was embarrassing the government, and the government didn't want to deal with the baggage of the PR being a certificate forger in the cabinet of Mr. President. So he had to resign. He had no choice. But going ahead to deny and say, is political manipulated, it's
malicious.
It's
what is malicious about it?
And then the presidency adding fire and insulting Nigerians. Not the presidency, Mr. Bayo Onanuga's statement, saying things like, he resigned, Nnaji has been a target of blackmail by political opponents. Did political opponents make you forge that certificate? Did political opponents make you claim that you were a graduate of the University of Nigeria in Nsukka? So these are some of the issues we should be talking about. How are we setting examples of integrity and accountability? Olive also spoke about the legal aspect of forgery. It is a crime in our constitution. And this is why, yesterday, Deji Adeyanju said, the judiciary is no longer the last hope of the common man, because you can see that a crime has been clearly committed here. Perjury. And still, no persecution. But if it was someone from the lower end of society, we'll see how justice would have been swiftly administered. So these are some of the issues we should be looking at. The presidency's statement on his resignation was tone deaf, and also the minister's resignation letter itself. He hasn't apologized for forgery. He hasn't admitted it when there's clear evidence against him. So we need to just do better. But let's also hear what Nigerians are saying. Okay.
Before we hear what Nigerians are saying, I think also there's a bit of a lot of an indictment on the House, because they did a screening. There was a screening that was done. So we talked about this slightly yesterday. Was there any vetting process? What was the vetting process like for these ministers? We watched it on TV when they would do bow and go, ask one or two questions here and there. It's not about asking questions. Even before we got our jobs, all of us here, we had to present certificates, right? Yeah. So what was the process? If for a job, I was speaking with a friend who got the job with the United States, and was sharing how, because of the sensitive nature of his job, they went as far as speaking to all his past employers. They went to investigate even. Wow. It was the investigation was deep.
Thorough.
It was thorough. Do we have that level of
Even
thoroughness?
If they can't do it, they should outsource it to third parties. There are organizations that do this, and they'll take it upon themselves for a fee. Do the due diligence for you. So it's very. And then no one is talking about his portfolio. Minister of Science and Technology.
Minister of Innovation.
Innovation, Science and Technology.
He's innovative.
He
innovated.
Wow. I wonder what lessons there's a setting for the younger generation coming up. I am looking forward to reading what Nigerians are saying.
Anyway, well, I mean, he's very innovative. His innovation has led to what we've seen here, and hopefully, I'm hoping that the presidency will retract its statement and put out another statement. Everyone is watching now, and we're watching to see if he's going to be penalized for what has been done. If he isn't, then we have set the motion running for what will happen in the future. But let's see what Nigerians are saying very quickly, and let's see how they're reacting to this resignation. Akintunde Babatunde says, now that the minister has resigned following the certificate forgery scandal and the investigations by Premium Times NG, journalism has won again. Yes, we agree with that. Now is to call for refund of all money he has made using forged documents. Oh, wow, my goodness. That's another angle to look into, because during his time as minister, maybe his time as maybe representing something else, he may have engaged in businesses, or his time as minister, and then there are conversations around that. But anyway, Williams Folaojo says, Minister Nnaji just resigned. Why did he? Probably guilty. He forged a certificate. Why do people think they can get away with stuff like that? Shame on Nnaji. Shame on the screening process of people who desire to lead. Shame on our system that's so vulnerable to forgers and forgery. Anyway, let's take this one. It's a bit long, lengthy. Pat Smott says, it's a staggering irony, isn't it? The very portfolio taxed with advancing knowledge, integrity in research, and technological excellence embroiled in a scandal over forged or questionable credentials. It's not just a breach of public trust. It's a symbolic collapse of meritocracy. In a country where innovation should be the engine of progress, such a scandal undermines everything: the credibility of national institutions, the morale of young scientists, the global perception of our governors, governance standards. It sends a chilling message to students and entrepreneurs that connections trump competence, and that the gatekeepers of progress may themselves be imposters. But this moment also invites a deeper reckoning. What systemic failures allowed such a person to ascend? What vetting process were ignored? And who bears responsibility for the oversight? If we're serious about reform, this isn't just about one minister. It's about rebuilding a culture where credentials are earned, not fabricated, where leadership is rooted in substance, not spectacle. I must say this, these few tweets that we've taken out of the many that we do have just clearly defines every single thing that comes out of this issue. A minister for innovation, science and technology. And I like what one of the commenters did say, that when you're talking about innovation and science, for those of us who were opportune to be in science class, science takes a lot. In short, integrity is one of the biggest watchwords for anybody who is engaged in any scientific processes, because, I mean, you cannot cheat nature when you are in science or you engage in any scientific processes. And this is someone who is to head that particular portfolio. And yet, he didn't do justice to even himself, talk less of his certificate, and not forgetting to that particular body, or you'd say that particular seat that he's been given to actually handle. Anyway, that's all we're going to take on what Nigerians are saying. Let's move on to another story, guys. On Wake Up Conversation, Mahmood Yakubu has finally bowed out. I mean, you know, he served 10 years. That's the tenure that you could stay. That's how long you could stay. And then he is handed over to one of the longest serving national commissioners in the Independent National Electoral Commission. And we're talking about the one and only May Agbamuche-Mbu. And she has taken over as acting in an acting capacity until the president eventually presents one who would eventually take charge as the official chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission. Let's take a look at the video to see the handover which took place yesterday.
Having been privileged to serve the commission for 10 years, with only a few more weeks to serve, I've taken a decision and convert same as provided by Section 306, subsections 1 and 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. In the interim, I am handing over to one of the most senior national commissioners by date of appointment. Following consultation with other national commissioners, Mrs. May Agbamuche-Mbu will serve in acting capacity pending the appointment of a substantive chairman of the commission.
So now INEC has a new chairman, a woman who has taken that seat, but for just an interim, or better still, for an acting position or capacity up until a new INEC boss is eventually appointed. But what key reforms should the next INEC leadership prioritize, and how can INEC restore trust among young voters and civic groups? My major question to you, Olive and Benga, as I push back to you guys, is this. How do you think the outgoing INEC boss, Mahmood Yakubu, will be remembered? Will he be remembered for one who had brought changes to the Independent National Electoral Commission, the one who had ensured that what he said when he said it, that he was going to use technology to ensure everything works fine, but it never happened that way? Is he going to be held accountable? Will history remember him for not having stood his ground to ensure that beavers and the introduction of it was actually used in totality? Or do you think Nigerians would kind of like put his name marked on the register as something quite different? It's over to you guys.
I would say that Mahmood Yakubu will most likely be remembered as a reformer in some sense, because he did bring digital advancement to our electoral processes. He came with so much fire and zest. If you go back to 2019 elections, one will consider it as largely free and fair. I don't want to say about the fairness, but it was a peaceful election, I would say, in comparison to a lot of the other elections we had witnessed. Him bringing in the whole digital process, beavers, IREV, digitizing the electoral process was definitely a plus when you talk about his contribution to the administration. However, by 2023, many began to view him as, his reputation had become very polarizing. There are those who viewed him as a reformer that was hampered by Nigeria's political realities. There are others who saw him as a symbol of INEC's institutional compromise. There were songs, if I was a bad guy, made a song about him. Yes, it's not a song that would be played on the airwaves, but that speaks to what a number of young people will remember his time in office, or his time as INEC chairman for. So I would say it's a mix. The positives and the strengths, which is of course the fact that he was able to digitize the process, and he brought reforms to our electoral process, but then again, the freeness and the fairness of the elections are still in question by a number of Nigerians.
From what Olive said, Olive has said it all, but I would just like to sum it up as saying he will be
All right, Mega, I'm trying to find if I can connect to you and hear you clearly, but I think we seem to have a little sound connectivity issue there. But I did take what Olive said, looking at his role in digitizing the process and the system, even though a cross-section of Nigerians will hardly agree with that, because they would take it back to the former late President Muhammadu Buhari, who had canvassed for a change and had signed in into law, of course, the electoral bill, looking at ensuring that the Nigerian elections would be more free and fair, very easy, no stress and so on, especially for the electorates. And these processes we did see take place. But did they take shape in credibility in terms of implementation, what was written? And don't forget that controversial or obnoxious conversation and law that would be found inside the electoral bill, where the former, because we can call him a former chairman right now, even though he said he has a few more weeks before he leaves his office. But the former chairman has said that what was written in the law was like he was going to transmit the result, but it didn't really say he had to do it electronically. Now, that conversation is what a lot of Nigerians will hold on to for a long time coming, stating clearly that if you did it in other states and then you couldn't replicate the same thing for the elections, the presidential elections, then there seems to be a major problem with the process. And then the announcing of the president in the early hours of the morning, Nigerians had never seen a thing like that in history, where they would actually wake up from sleep and then they hear, oh, wait, we have a new president announced when, at what time? But anyway, it's back to you guys, Benga, if you could hear me right now, and I hope I can hear you this time. You were trying to drop your own points and opinion on this issue. Okay, all right. Let's take reactions very quickly before we come back to you, you guys. Let's see what X is saying about the former INEC boss's resignation, or I'd say end of tenure, not resignation, I beg your pardon, because it seems to be resignation, reigning resignation everywhere, apart from the science minister resigning. But let's see this one. Atoba Jaye says, Nigeria will never forget how he shattered the foundation of our democracy through the 2023 cyber glitch. There you have it. And the electoral election fraud. The will of the people was traded. Now, this is what some people will forever remember him for. This is a female Yakubu. Forget tribe. She's been everywhere, corrupt with him. How's she any different? Well, anyway, your opinion. But we're just trying to see what you're saying. She's just a scapegoat to take the next blame or make a certain region silent when it all goes down. Either ways, when confirmed, it will be a win-win for the team. Tochukwu, just to mention that she's not the INEC chairman. She is just in an acting capacity, except the president deems her fit to be the official INEC chairman. But for now, she's just acting. So also, let's be mindful of just throwing shades at people without having really known who they are. She has a very strong portfolio, by the way. So Professor Mahmood Yakubu hands over to his right-hand man as acting INEC chairman. Democracy just got a little more family and friends friendly. Meanwhile, Nigerians are still waiting for truly independent electoral oversight. Okay, I will take this one from Byron. Changing faces won't cleanse INEC's rotten soul. From Mahmood to May, it's the same corrupt cartel recycling fraud in fancy titles. INEC remains one of the biggest cancers eating Nigeria alive. It is an agency that rigs hope, kills truth, and sells democracy to the highest bidder. That's your opinion, by the way, Byron. But that's what Byron says, and others too have joined their voices in reacting to it. So many reactions on X. If you go there, you see what Nigerians are saying. It's a different conversation. Meanwhile, the Speaker, Abbas, has also spoken. He says that they must finalize electoral reforms ahead of 2027. So if the Speaker of the House of Representatives is saying they need to run it very fast, run quickly, and ensure you finalize all the reforms that's needed to be done before 2027, maybe May will be able to reform it. I mean, the first name is maybe May. Back to you, Benga. You've seen what Nigerians are saying, your reaction as well.
You could have taken up a career as a rapper. I saw your play on words there. Quite impressive, I must say. But I mean, these are very serious conversations that should be had. And she's going to be acting in an acting capacity, so I don't see how much you could say. But this has also led to lots of debates on, the president appointing the INEC chairman. They says it takes out the independent in INEC, and you know what they say about who pays the piper dictates the tune. So it's part of those reforms that they're calling for. But moving away from that, yesterday, New Central had the pleasure of sitting down with His Royal Highness.
No, you can't move there. I'm not giving my thoughts on it too. No, please don't move away yet.
Great minds think.
No. I still have my thoughts. Please. Great minds think alike, but not to this one. I need to give my thoughts on this one, and I need to give my thoughts because yes, we moved away from Yakubu and Yakubu's thoughts, but I want to speak. Of course, you cannot see that we have a female acting INEC chairman, and I will not be excited about that. I'm very excited about that. Congratulations to her. Yes, she's not the INEC Chairman. She's tentative. There are strengths and risks to that. Now, she served as INEC National Commissioner in 2016 and was the longest-serving acting commissioner at the time, longest-serving INEC commissioner at the time. She also has a legal background. So not only does she have a legal background, her expertise, she practiced law for years. She's been known to be a fair person. However, she comes in at a very critical time, at a time where we have elections still coming up. So we would seem that the controversy that she would inherit some controversy from her predecessor, unfortunately. We could see from the tweet some people saying female Yakubu. Yeah, by association, not necessarily about the strength of her character or her expertise or her integrity. She will inherit some controversy because it's a very sensitive time to be an acting INEC chairman. Also, because she's temporary, she's acting, there's only so much she can do in terms of bringing reforms. She can't make bold reforms in certain areas.
Elections before, the Anambra election is coming in November. But the president could appoint an INEC chairman before
well, he can. But I think also, for those who are wondering why she's serving, the way that they would appoint would typically be in terms of service. She's like I believe she's the longest, the most senior person at the time. So for the duration that we have, or that she has to be there, we wish her all the best, and we hope that, she can prove to the world that what a man can do, a woman can do.
Olive, one thing I really admire you for is you never fail to champion the cause of a woman.
Thank you so much.
Women supporting women.
Thank you so much.
Only if Johansson can have my back like this, but I'm sure he does.
You are also my fellow feminists.
Yes.
So thank you so much. All right, we can now move to the other story.
Okay, let's talk about this last week of conversation before we move into our top stories for today. Yesterday, News Central had the pleasure of sitting down on the sidelines of the 31st National Economic Summit here in Abuja. We sat down with the Emir of Kano, Sanusi Sanusi, His Royal Highness, and he did reveal quite a number of things during the course of that interview. He said that he was sacked for revealing missing funds. I mean, you'd say, that's a good thing, is blowing the whistle, but why would you sack someone for doing that? But let's take a listen to His Royal Highness, and we'll be back to take reactions.
On this matter. First of all, let me say that what's happening with Dangote is very sad because it sends the wrong signals to investors, local and international. The Dangote refinery is a strategic national investment. To have a Nigerian invest over $20 billion in this economy, to have any individual invest $20 billion in this economy is, at this time when people have seen Nigeria as bad news, is something that we should all comment and something we should gather around. Secondly, if you look at the problems of the Nigerian economy on the fiscus before the refinery came on stream, the bulk of those problems had to do with the petroleum sector. Our refineries were not working. We're an oil-producing country that was importing petroleum products. In addition to importing petroleum products and draining our foreign exchange, we had huge corruption and huge scams in the subsidy regime. I lost my job in the central bank because I was pointing out these leakages. Now, the refinery disrupts a business model for rent seekers, and that is why it will face opposition. It is not about rights, it is not about the economy. It's about people who see the model they've had for 30, 40 years suddenly disappearing. People have made billions of money from this business, claiming they imported petrol that they never imported, claiming money from NNPC as subsidy, and in an opaque manner, in a manner that has not been audited, in a manner where nobody sees. Now that model is disappearing. We're now going to be a net exporter of petroleum products. We're going to produce our petroleum products locally. We're not importing. We are going to save our foreign exchange and actually add to the foreign exchange through our exports. Now, no patriotic Nigerian should get in the way of that refinery. I don't know the details of the conflict between him and the unions. What I know is that joining a union is a voluntary thing. If a driver wants to join a union, then he should go and work for a company that allows its drivers to join unions. If a driver chooses not to be part of a union and work for
Very, very deep conversation. You don't want to miss that conversation. Head on to our YouTube channel and watch the full interview where the former CBN governor did join News Central live from the NES event. And he spoke to, of course, our news channel, highlighting some of the major challenges Nigeria is facing, not just economically, but when it comes to investment. And that statement he made there, he was talking about Dangote versus Pengasyn, talking about the trade unions and Dangote having invested over $20 billion. The former CBN governor did say that it will scare investors when they start to see unions, people fighting an investor who has invested so much into the Nigerian economy. I mean, take a look at it. And this makes me wonder, isn't it shameful that as a country like Nigeria, we have only one refinery, major one, not the modular, the major refinery working, and it doesn't belong to the federal government. It doesn't. Rather, it belongs to who? You know who it belongs to. So it's enough for you to think ahead, and you would want to agree along the lines of the former CBN governor, where he said that it's not enough to just fight him. If he wanted, he could have taken his money elsewhere. And he also echoes exactly what the current vice president has said during the Nigerian Economic Summit opening speech, where he also said that Pengasyn is not bigger than Nigeria. And Nigerians should understand this as well as Pengasyn and the trade unions, that they're not bigger. But they also fired back and said that his statement was made out of touch, out of reality, that he doesn't really understand the reasons why they are indeed going head to head with Dangote. But these conversations are conversations that we will continue. But then again, head on to YouTube, make sure you watch that interview. A lot of insights. And for the fact that he was sacked for having revealed the leakages happening or going on within the Nigerian space when it comes to business, and when it comes to highlighting some of the key areas where, you know, they should be blocked. They should be blocked completely. And then he lost his job for doing so. It's enough for you to also have a rethink.